No one wants to be the Blockbuster or the BlackBerry of today.
How can we reinvent what we do today with a clear goal?
I think both of you will be able to provide great insights on the big topic of AI. Look, I know everyone's talking about it at the moment, but fundamentally it has changed how we've been working over the last couple of years. And while that has undoubtedly brought many amazing efficiencies that we'll obviously be able to walk through today, there's also come a lot of challenges with it. And sometimes that can be expectations on output, expectations on how quickly you deliver. From your guys' perspectives, your teams, your businesses, what has changed over the last 3 to 5 years? What's changed most for how you guys operate?
So I think one of the key changes has been absolutely the elevation of expectations, not just from the customer perspective, but also from the leadership team. Obviously, there is a hype for AI. There is the more and more MarTech and technology platforms supporting personalization, but the expectation is almost one-to-one at I will say light speed. It's not just about the personalization, it's not just about the volume, it's also the speed, the quality, and also hitting the P&L.
Yeah, I would agree. Definitely speed and volume have probably been the biggest shifts that we've seen throughout the marketing, in the last few years. If you take, for example, paid performance channels, you used to be able to run a campaign with a very sort of small subset of creative. But now, due to some of the algorithms that are powering, our social platforms and all those sort of AI tools, they often demand, 10 times the creative that we used to put in there, because then it will determine a winning variant.
Yeah.
So that amount of output from the teams has escalated. And so, we need to find ways that we can, meet that output, have that winning variant, still be cutting through edge without, with roughly the same resources, basically.
How have you then adapted the way that your team works? Do you have sort of tangible examples of, like how you're kind of combating that pressure and still kind of meeting your output expectations?
One key element is to make sure that from a front door perspective, we revisit the process and make it more adjusted to how the new demand looks like. The second component is very much about modernizing also the ways of working and how we deliver the campaigns and the activity, making sure that we adopt new technologies in the MarTech ecosystem to ensure that the always-on campaigns are running in the background in more effective ways, that the actualization of the content is streamlined across the different channels. But then overall, there is something which is very important, and I would like that all organizations take into consideration, which is training, upskilling the team, making sure that everyone has access to personalized training for the day-to-day jobs.
I've been looking at every stage of our marketing process to try to work out where we can help automate and streamline some of those more repetitive or manual tasks. So as I mentioned, content generation is a huge one for us. So we do have generative AI tools, and that's been helping us to streamline some of those processes and produce content at scale. Has definitely been something that we've seen to help scale us.
It's interesting because I think obviously, Sylvia, you both kind of have drawn in on AI, but in different ways slightly. So obviously you're kind of talking about using it to automate that kind of always on approach. And obviously for you, you're saying that it's generating things faster, making sure that you can kind of be everywhere all at once. What's the risk of not being able to scale your output?
I see the risk of not doing it is basically lagging behind. You will probably lose your position in the market, you'll start losing share of wallet, and there will be competitors or new brands that come in and take your customers because they are able to offer to them what they need better, because they can understand their needs better, and also serve them in a way that is perfectly what they are looking for.
No one wants to be the Blockbuster or the BlackBerry of today. I mean, those brands weren't lacking, recognition or scale, but they didn't keep up with marketing technology. And unfortunately, that's how they got left behind.
As AI usage increases, as your output increases, managing that brand regulatory risk is a huge factor that sometimes hasn't actually been considered before getting the AI tool in. So what new risks are starting to appear?
Making sure that, whatever outputs in terms of copy, it's still coming across as your brand tone of voice, and that authenticity is still there. Another sort of huge risk is, I think everybody's probably heard of AI slop, which is
Yeah.
coming out, when you scale production. And we've seen examples of this with some global brands. Like, I don't know if you saw Ariana Grande on the cover of
Oh yeah, I did.
Vogue with six fingers. I mean, if they're not immune to this, then, some of the smaller brands need to really be careful. I think there really needs to be that level of human oversight because things go wrong. And when they go wrong, they go very wrong.
When you assess the risk today before launching something, doesn't mean that the risk is going to stay like that all the way through. You need risk models that are changing and adapting over time as your tools, your data, your algorithms evolve.
So obviously, some of you hinted there about how risk shows up within different industries. You've obviously got experience in financial services, telco, but I know obviously you've been working in retail, technology. I'm curious about how that risk shows up in those different industries and how, if for someone who's potentially pivoting from one to the other, what they need to consider.
The biggest risk at the moment is how fast we're moving. We've never seen in our careers, probably in our lifetime, any technology move this fast, right? Like if you think of how long it took Facebook to get to 100 million users, it was about 4.5 years. So I think we are moving so fast, and that kind of acceleration is it's unprecedented. We need to make sure that leaders, I think, across industries are hearing about AI and how we can implement it, and everyone wants to jump on the bandwagon. But we need to make sure that there are clear guardrails. What are we doing? How are we making sure that the right governance is in place? Who are we working with? Because as much as we need to move fast, we need to sort of balance that as well.
I think overall there are three kinds of risks. When you are implementing new AI initiatives or using new tools, I think it's important to consider what is the risk for the company, like internally, the impact on strategic metrics. Secondly, what is the risk for the clients or customers and how it is impacting them in their lives? And then what is the risk, if you like, for the ecosystem, the industry, or even the global industries?
What effective guardrails look like for your teams, the kind that will protect the business, but also enable you to scale and reach those output expectations that we discussed earlier.
We have seen a lot of chiefs of AI coming up in different industries, different size organizations. And somehow you could call it chief of AI, you could call it head of AI or VP. But at the end of the day, it is the orchestrator of ensuring that there is responsible AI practices across the business. What I have seen happening in previous roles is these people are very well connected across their peers to make sure that across all the business units, whether that is product, whether that is marketing, corporate affairs, IT, obviously data, they genuinely understand what are they trying to achieve, what are their goals, how are they going to move the organization forward in consistent and cohesive way in alignment with the bigger strategy. Secondly, they have created somehow like a center of excellence or an accelerator lab where everyone can put together ideas and use cases to use AI holistically across the business. Finally, when assessing which ones to take on versus not, ensuring that there is, we touched on this before, there is consistent prioritization framework, good guardrails to ensure non-bias, ethical AI, trustability, risk management, transparency, human in the loop, all those 6 principles that must be embedded in the implementation of the proof of concepts. And then also, obviously, once those proof of concepts help you very quickly to understand whether it's a winning initiative or whether you just need to let it go, then you need to roll it out in a sustainable way, making sure that you have forecasted the cost of maintaining the solution as part of the business.
Internally, we're still kind of getting that balance right between empowering our employees and making sure that there are sort of principles in place. We've got approved tools that we can use. We have workshops that are held regularly to try and encourage usage. And there's just protocols around, what you can put in there, what you can't, how you should manage these things. I think it's great that we're actually encouraged to use it, and they do want to empower us.
I want to dig into some real use cases of where you're using AI to genuinely see efficiencies at the moment.
In my mind, like the three key components of AI these days, the AI that is used more from a predictive perspective, trying to forecast what the trends are going to be like. The second one, which is more related to Gen AI in the sense of the LLM models and helping us to understand customer verbatims and what are they actually saying in a big amount of unstructured information. And then the third component, which is about the agents and how you automate tasks and create an orchestration of agents that are specialized on different tasks that execute activities on your behalf.
Our research team use it to upload, thousands of responses from surveys, and we can use that to sort of pull real insights out of there. I often use it to, this is just a personal thing that I do, but we do every month, we do a marketing report, and it's, 50 slide deck long. I stick it in Notebook LLM and make a podcast out of it. So all the execs can just listen to that if they want.
In your opinion, what does good use of AI in marketing look like this year and beyond?
Very much changing the mindset about using AI to keep doing what we do faster, and moving from that mindset to how can we reinvent what we do today with a clear goal. To me, that clear goal from a marketing perspective is addressing the customer needs, what a customer is looking for, and how can I address those needs in the most efficient way.
We're starting to work with our CRM platform, and they've got some AI tools in there, and it's going to help us look at next best action for what our customers are doing, predictive churn, just every kind of goal. Or you can set up different analysis as well. So how often have you could be sitting next to an analyst, but their time is so poor you can't get them to help you on certain things. So I think where I see AI really coming into play as well is helping with a lot of that analysis, a lot of the testing, really looking at, what's that next action you want customers to take.
Yeah, I love your point about the life cycle. I have seen the role of the CMO or the Chief Customer Officer somehow coming together, like the CMO is taking the customer officer role or the other way around, because at the end of the day, the marketing is not just about acquiring the customers, but making sure that you meet those needs across the life cycle. So having these tools that help you do that cohesively, it's also one of my passions, actually.
I know. Well, that's what you've got to think about. I'm glad that CMOs are starting to clock on. That's really good, because I've sort of been banging on about it for ages. It's that whole activation, right? That the second a customer lands on your site, like, how are you activating them? What's the email columns you send? How are you making sure they don't churn? And that's absolutely where I see AI can help us with that. And there needs to be that sort of single view across the whole journey. And I think there's tools now that are going to be helping that.
Absolutely, I agree.
Probably a good point to lead us to our final question, which is, what advice would you give another marketing leader, a CMO, someone who's wanting to move faster this year while staying brand and regulatory compliant? What's your one piece of advice for them?
Do it, but not do it alone. So basically what that means is that we are all on this same journey of learning and adapting to how AI can help us. If you want to make sure that you progress your day-to-day job, but you also do it in a compliant way, get your peer from legal, get your peer from finance, and let's get the journey together.
Lean in now and do it deliberately. So the Productivity Commission has estimated that AI will bring in $116 billion to the Australian economy in the next decade.
Oh my God.
Which is pretty mind-blowing, right?
Oh, wow.
So that tells you two things. I think it means that, the upside is significant and change is inevitable. So if you want to take, I think, some sort of small tangible things that you could start doing today, I would say start to pilot some low risk scenarios of automation or things that you could start getting AI to help with. I would start doing it now rather than, in 2 years' time. Like we've said, the whole theme has been move quickly. But also assign accountability to someone. I think if you have someone internally championing this, it's a lot easier than kind of assuming that everybody's just doing it on their own. Like, I think you really need to kind of hero someone to do it, or, like I said, get an external provider to help you. But I think kind of just assuming that everybody's off on their own, looking at AI and working through it, I think that's kind of the wrong assumption. So those would be the three things that I would say start doing today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. I mean, we've obviously got through quite a lot today, but I think there's some really tangible insights for other marketing customer leaders out there. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you. It's been great.
Yeah, fantastic.
Let's all hope we start using AI amazingly this year.